How have you been able to get past the noise, the voices in your head, or of other people's opinions that may not be the best ones? How do you block that out and stay motivated to keep writing? She was acting like, well, I don't know. I mean, girl, you know you want that man. On the show Fresh Prince,
Hmm.
what's Jeffrey's middle name? I
Oh,
know, right? Is it A, Philip, B, Butler, C, Barbara, or D, Ramon? Hello and welcome to the Mic'd Up Podcast. My name is Kaya. I am an author, a poet, an entrepreneur, and a podcast host. Today, I am super excited for the author we have in a virtual building. I have been waiting for this interview. We have Bailey West in the building. Mrs. West is in the building. People say that to you?
no.
Well, you are in the virtual building. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to read your bio and we're going to jump right into the Q&A.
That sounds good.
Okay. Bailey West, an accomplished author, has captivated readers with her thought-provoking and conversation-starting novels since her debut, Blue's Beauty, the Bluette Men Series, Book 1. Her writing consistently ranks high on the charts, and she is passionate about using both the written and spoken word to empower people. Bailey's ultimate goal is to leave a lasting impression on every reader who encounters her books. So, we are for sure going to get into a book discussion, but first, I always like to know the origin story of an author. So, can you tell us when you began writing and when you actually knew you were a writer?
Oh, so those are good questions. So I began writing, and so I tell the story different ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I've always had a predisposition to write,
Okay.
right? But I didn't really tell stories on paper. I told stories in my head.
Okay.
Uh, and I would be able to tell myself stories to fall asleep at night, and I
Mm.
would do it like it was my own series in my head, just night after night, kind of like bedtime stories.
Okay.
As an adult, you sort of life happens and you lose those things that you were familiar with as a child. And
Mm-hmm.
so I believe that it came back to me when my mind was sort of starting to clear up from my youngest daughter was graduating from high school
Okay.
and she was about to leave for college. And I started having these thought processes of what's next for me because I've been a mom,
Mm-hmm.
and I've been a wife and an employee, but like, who am I? What are the things that are good for me?
Mm-hmm.
So I always could sew. So I was like, well, I'm just going to design clothes. Why not? Because I love fashion. I'm going to design clothes. Realized that once I hit a certain age, that my patience was zero as it relates
Mm.
to trying to finish clothes. Took too long,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So then I was like, well, I'm going to design jewelry. Bought all of the stuff, couldn't get jewelry together. And
Right.
so I moved from the Midwest to the East Coast, and I was riding the subway to work every day.
Okay.
And in trying to assimilate to what I saw everybody else doing, I was like, what can I do to sit as I'm sitting on the subway? Because you can't sit and stare at people in New York City because they'll think that you're, either a tourist or mentally ill. So
Yes.
I so living in New York City, I found Amazon and started reading the free books. And I was like, wait, it's actually Black books out here for
Yes.
free. That
Yes.
was like, whoa. So I started just devouring. And one day I just had an idea. I was like, maybe because the story that I wanted to tell, I hadn't read yet. And so I
Okay.
said, well, maybe I can figure out a story that I would want to read. And so
Right.
I started writing. My goal with writing my first story was to finish something because I started so many projects that I
Mm.
didn't finish. And so my goal was just to finish, but like somewhere in the middle, I decided like this is what I really want to get this done, and I really want to show this to people. But I was afraid, but once I did, I released it and it took off. When I knew that I was a writer was when someone reached out to me and said, "Hey, can we talk about your book?" And I'm like, "You found my book?" Because it was
Wow.
crazy. I really low key, like you see people coming out with these big coming soon, new author, blah, blah, blah. They have the backing, they had the people. I didn't have anybody. It was just me,
Right, right.
my family that helped me edit the book and a book cover artist that I found through social media to put together a book cover for me. And so when someone reached out and said, "You're that author," and I read your book, that's when I knew.
Oh, wow. Now, what year did you first publish Blues Beauty?
I published Blues Beauty in December of 2016.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, that's awesome. I think that listening to your origin story and how you're into fashion
Mhm.
circles into the character because we'll get into that. But I was reading and I was just like, I like the way you putting these outfits together in this book. So that's a
Mhm.
good tidbit. But I do think that it's great that you did try different things
Mhm.
that you thought that you wanted to do or you may have wanted to do just to kind of say, okay, that ain't it no more. That ain't it no more. So when you did get to the writing, that obviously it clicked and it stuck. So when you did start writing, how did you feel different from, like, let's say when you were trying to do fashion and you're like, no, that's not it? What was the feeling that writing gave you that doing fashion didn't, that you knew, okay, this is it?
I think the cool thing for me about writing is that I could skip around. So
Mm,
I talk to a lot of authors who talk about writing. They have outlines and then they kind of write in order, which is cool. But for me, I write as the story comes to me. So I can build scenes all over the place and then build bridges to connect those scenes. And that's my process. And I've tried to like write in order.
mm-hmm.
But I have I don't know how. I don't like it. That doesn't work for me. I've
Right.
tried and get to a point, and if I can't get over that hump, then I think that's where we talk about developing like writer's block. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I've learned to just move around the block, do something else in the story, and come back and kind of bridge it together. So with sewing, there are very specific steps to follow. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't the skirt if I haven't sewn the side seam.
Right.
It's one,
Got
two,
it.
three, four. While we're writing, I can do 12, 2, 3, 7, 9, and just be all over the place. So I think it took away that need for that complete type of structure. It just gave me the ability to freely create.
Okay. Who are some of your influences? You said that you started reading the free books on Amazon. Do you remember some of the authors that you started reading? And if so, were they like become your influences?
Look back, because I was thinking about that. I look back to try to see like what I was reading when it
Hmm.
really popped off for me, and I don't remember who the specific people were that I started reading initially, but my introduction into the community that I'm in now was I found Christina C. Jones' book. And I don't remember the name of it. It was one of her older books. I think it's
Hmm.
about tennis player or something. I don't remember. But I
Okay.
was like, these are just like regular Black people.
Right,
I
right.
was reading a lot of street lit, I think is what I had initially come across, and then some urban. But then I read one of her books and I was like, oh, this is just regular people. And through
Yes.
her, I started finding everybody else. So she really was my introduction into the community. So I came into the community of Black romance as a reader first and just devoured, everything. I joined groups and,
Right.
groups and stuff and saw what people were reading and read those things. And then eventually became an author within that same community.
Okay. Now, have you had an opportunity to meet Christina C. Jones and tell her that? How was that experience?
I have. We've had multiple conversations because
Okay.
have been in some of the same room signing books and everything. And
Right.
also with Christina. My first book signing, I was on the elevator coming back down from the room and I was nervous. And she was like, girl, you're gonna be okay. You fine. It's gonna work out. And so we've laughed about that and had those conversations. But yeah, I think that she is one of the pioneers for what we do now in this community. I know that she stands on the shoulders of a lot of people, but from what I was introduced to, I always give her kudos for that because she's still a magnificent author
She
and
is.
deserves all of the flowers that she gets.
She is for sure. Now, what would you consider your genre? Because it's romance, but more specifically, what would you consider your subgenre?
I don't know. So I
Mm.
haven't boxed myself in because it really sort of doesn't exist.
Mm.
I write contemporary romance, but I am very spiritually centric um,
Mm-hmm.
in that my characters is not Christian literature in the traditional sense. It could be if the
Right.
church so against sex.
Right.
But because I was, to an extent, I was sort of shunned by people who were looking for just Christian literature,
Oh, really?
Christian fiction. Oh
Okay.
yeah, because as soon as I think my character in Blues Beauty said hell, and I remember reading reviews from church people like, a pastor's child would never say hell, and I was
Wow.
like, wow, like I grew up in church, and I'm very good friends with pastors' kids. I'm sure that we all said way more than
Right.
that, you know. So I don't call myself a Christian fiction author because I'm not, and because it's just romance, right?
Right.
It's just contemporary romance. It's people living their everyday lives, and I want to take the stigma away from Christianity being so segmented from everything else, because Christians are just people who live by a set of rules and regulations that govern their lives like anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't really have a subgenre. I just keep it in contemporary romance.
Okay. Um, when you think back to writing your first project, which is Blues Beauty, up until your most recent project, what is your most recent project, may I ask?
My most recent project was released in February. It was Love Bites and Blooms.
Love, okay, I did see that. Haven't gotten into that one yet, but I did see that one. Since the first book into your latest release, how do you feel you've grown as a writer?
Hmm. Grown. I don't know if well grown. Oh yes. So when you look back on, like, if I read some of my earlier things, um, I'm very critical of myself. So it took me a
Mm-hmm.
long time to even reopen a lot of the stories that I wrote at the beginning of my career because I didn't know what I was doing at all.
Right.
But I was free.
Yeah.
As I
Yeah.
look back on my time with Blues Beauty and Paxton's Peace and Ezekiel's Passion very fondly, because I didn't have everything in my head telling me what I should and shouldn't do, who I am and who I'm not, what the characters need to say and not
Mm.
to say, because you really do start as an author. You are creative, but that makes you sensitive to a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
things as it relates to your art. So you absorb people's opinions, and you get into these chats and with the readers who talking about what should have happened or what's fake and that can never
Right.
happen and all of that
Right.
stuff. So that stuff sit in your brain as you start to create. So I miss the freedom of the early days of just writing whatever I wanted to write. But then I also know that I have developed a strong voice in the story that I'm trying to tell. So it doesn't really take a lot of thought process to say what I want to say now. Whereas before it did, because I was still trying to kind of get into the groove of who I was. So I
Mm.
think just going in the understanding of the story that I want to tell, being unapologetic about who I am and the characters that I want to write, that's my growth.
Okay. Well, you mentioned how people will criticize your work and it sits with you. How do you get past? How have you been able to get past the noise, the voices in your head, or of other people's opinions that may not be the best ones? How do you block that out and stay motivated to keep writing?
I don't read reviews.
Mm.
I don't read reviews. So I initially was consumed with reviews because in my mind, reviews were an indication of success. You look out on Amazon and you see books that have 4 or 5 thousand reviews, and then you say, "Oh, that's a successful story."
Right.
So that was what I was chasing initially, was people's reviews and people's praise of the stories that I was writing. But what I found was that even early on with my initial story, people were very critical. I remember I received one review, and I always talk about this, but this one review almost made me just throw down my computer and never pick it up again because it was
Really?
so harsh. It was so harsh. It was hard to read. And it was even harder because I had been around this person. This person had been in the same room with me. And so I had a hard time with that. And so I had to really reconcile within myself how to move past it. And I did, but with struggle, I moved past it. And so now I've gotten to a point where I'll release the story, I'll go out and see that the reviews are coming in, but to really sit and just read every review, I don't do that anymore. Because what I've learned is that if I'm satisfied with the story that I'm telling, then I just want to share my art with you. The review space is for readers and not for me. If you want to say something to me, you can DM me, you can email me, you can call me if we're friends and discuss it. But I'm not going to get your feedback from reviews. I'm just not. And so I have gotten so much better with not even 5-star reviews or 4-star reviews can still have things in there that can trigger you as a creative. So I don't read them anymore. I don't. And I have a lot of author friends and colleagues who still are very much so reading everyone. And I don't. I'm satisfied with it. If there's an error or something like that, let me know. Yeah. Inconsistency, of course, because I'm human, I may make mistakes. But outside of what you thought she should have wore, what the names were and all that stuff, girl, you can. Everybody got an opinion, right? And so you are welcome to yours in your space. Keep that in your space and I stay in mine. So that's how I survive it.
Okay. I really like that you said that the reviews are for the readers. That is like a mantra that a lot of us really needs to pick up, because I rarely read reviews now also, because people can be, like you said, just so critical and harsh, like you personally offended them. Like, you know what I mean? It's just it's not a good space to live in, like you said. So every now and then I will read one and I'm like, oh, that's not that bad. That's not that bad. And I'll see one I'm like, see, this is why I don't do it. This is exactly why I don't do it. So I really love that mantra. And like I said, I think a lot of authors or just creators in general should adopt that, because it'll help a lot of, unnecessary heartache in your creative process, because your creative process is yours. You know what I mean? And who your work is going to be for, that's who it's for. If it's not for said person, then move on.
Yes.
So I 100% agree with you on that. So you mentioned earlier that when you write, you just write as it comes to you. You don't outline. They call that a pantser. Pantser. I cannot write out of order. I have tried. I would love to write out of order, but I kind of feel like, okay, if I write this scene and then I write the scene before that, I might forget, something may not connect. So that's why, like, I guess it's a little bit of OCD in me that won't allow me to do that. But what does your writing process look like, as far as how do you decide your characters, the storyline, and things like that? How do you do that?
A lot of times my characters just come to me. I can be at church, I can be at the grocery store, at restaurants, anywhere, and it'll just kind of pop into my head. I may see something on social media and say, "Oh, that would be cute."
Yeah.
So they come to me in all ways, shapes, and fashions. And in my prescribed order is typically to put everything into a series and just kind of build on that series. So once I get one set of characters, I typically will try to build a series around those people. So whether like the Bluettes, they're brothers, or my most recent series, they're just family members and friends, but they all have some level of connection. That's easier for me because I can recycle characters,
Yes,
keep the
yes,
story. And I don't have to create a new barbershop every time, a new church every time, a new town every time. I
right,
just keep all of that stuff consistent. And so that is really how my process goes. Naming them is a big deal to me because typically their names will have something to do with their character, uh,
mm-hmm.
or something that just when I'm thinking of them, almost like naming a baby.
Mm,
When I had my kids, I kind of knew their names, but when I look at them, I was like, oh yeah, this is, you
right,
know, Jada, this is, And so that's how it is with my characters because they've had different names. And I can type like most of the story, just really trying to force myself to use that name. And then I have to go back and rename them to make them fit,
right,
about the story. So that's how it goes. I start off in order, like I
mm,
start with the prologue, chapter
right.
one. Then after that, I'll be all just
That's
zigzagging through life, just and I know it sounds so weird because most people I meet say I cannot write out of order, and because going back and doing, and it does probably make it a little harder in the edit stage because I
mm.
do have to make sure that I'm consistent because I've changed people's names and everything. But it works for me.
I don't think it's strange at all. I mean, it makes sense to write how the thoughts come to you. It's just it don't work like that in my brain. I want it to. I want it
Yes,
to so
yes.
bad because it's just like I know what I would like to have coming up, but I have to write it in order. So kudos to you and to
Make it.
whomever can do that because I'm sure you can get your projects done a lot faster. Speaking of which, how long does it normally take you to finish a project? Because I listened to the audio of Blues Beauty and that was a 15-hour listen. So
Mhm.
I just kind of calculated that was like 150K words.
It was, yeah, yeah.
How long did it take you to write that book? Because
That's my
that's
longest story.
that's a
And I cussed up out of Blues Beauty. Like I was just writing my little heart away. But
yes,
that was the joy
yeah,
of free to just do whatever I wanted to do. Um, I typically so blues I wrote on Blues Beauty for probably from February of 2016 to
hmm
maybe like October. Like I just was
okay.
just
That
free.
seems reasonable for your
Yeah,
first one,
footloose and
and
dancing.
yeah,
Yeah. But it could take me up to about 3 months to finish a full length story, and even longer if I have life and things are just not clicking for me. But some of my shorter projects I can write in weeks. It
right.
doesn't take as long. But those are the ones that I'm just throwing stuff together and I don't have to worry about consistency, who was with who the last time and who was
Right.
married, not married, all of that. So when I'm crafting my series novels, it could take 4 months sometimes to really get done. And then that's just my first draft. Then I have to go through and make sure it's right. Then I send it, out
Right.
and everything. So it could take some time.
Those are good time frames. That's a really good time frame. Oh, I had a question at the tip of my tongue. Oh, it wasn't a question, it was a comment. I was going to say, for those of you watching, just for reference of like what's considered an average book length, like a full length novel can range typically between an average of 70 to maybe 90K words. That's average. And like she just said, that one was 150K. So that was like double the amount. So you was really putting pen to paper on that one. So we're gonna talk about it. I'm excited to talk about the book. I keep talking about it right here, but I'm gonna get to it. I'm excited about the book. Um, in what ways do you feel like becoming an author, particularly the content, not the content. Let me rewind. In what ways do you feel like writing in the romance genre with you call them spiritually centered characters? Has that made you, how has that made you grow personally, if at
Mm,
all?
hmm That's sort of who I am. So I grew
Okay.
up in church. My daddy was a preacher. My brother is a preacher. My aunt and uncle preachers. Like I grew up in church. And so church was a very central part of my experience, and I enjoyed it. So I
Hmm.
wasn't the kid that fought against, like, oh, I gotta go again. Like, I wanted to go. I enjoyed it. I sang in the choir. I did all of the stuff. I was a young missionary. I did, like, I was the church kid,
Hmm.
And so becoming an adult, I started to experience the weird things in church. Like I got pregnant as a teenager. And so
Hmm.
then I had to sit down in church. I couldn't do anything because that was shameful.
Hmm.
And then I got married and I moved away and I stepped out away from church for a long time and just experienced life. But God was always a part, but just church was not.
Hmm.
And then coming back into the church as an adult and making those decisions, what I had to do and learn was to take the things that I learned and look at them in a more modern concept, because the things that my dad told me may not even work for me now as I am as an adult. And so I kind of deconstructed my thought process as it relates to God and Christianity, and had to reconstruct it based on the life that I live now. And so with that, it gave me the ability to write characters who think like me, who
Mm.
um and it makes me think about it, right? Because there are some things that with church and being so ingrained in you, and this with anything in our lives, whatever our parents taught us, our grandparents or whoever raised us, there are some things that just really don't make real sense now, but we do it,
Right.
we're regurgitating what we were taught, but it doesn't make real full sense. And so it gives me an opportunity to kind of step back and think about how things really do work. Even writing. So with Blues Beauty, he's a minister and she's a minister, and trying to write that love relationship within the context of what the church prescribes as the right way. But then I wrote another story where he was a pastor and they did not wait to have sex before they got married.
Hmm.
And so, but that challenged me. It challenged me because in my mind, I'm like, well, this is what he a pastor, he's
But but
be,
it's realistic
but it's
though.
realistic,
It's
and so that's
realistic.
how I've grown is to really take on more empathy for how people
Mm.
really express themselves. And man, just let people be people, just like your life is not going to be my life.
Right.
Enjoy pushing the boundaries of conversation, because I knew as soon as I wrote that sex scene with that pastor and his girlfriend that people were going to have a problem with it. But then it opens us up to healthy conversation, a healthy discourse about how things should go, and does it really make sense?
Hmm. Okay. Um, let me see. So you mentioned earlier that you became an author in the community that you were supporting initially.
Mhm.
How has now you being in that community, how does that feel with you now being in the community and people supporting you? How does that feel?
It feels great.
Mm.
I've created so many and gained so many meaningful connections with people through reading and
Mm.
books. It's just been fantastic. Some of
Mm.
these ladies and men, I don't know how I survived without them in my life. Like they have just been loving and supportive and understanding and financially available. When I release stuff, they just go buy it.
Mm.
And then encouraging on the back end when they don't see me or they don't hear from me. They're checking in, and then when they see me in person, we're hugging genuinely and talking about family and what's going on and really caring about each other. And that's all from books. That's
Mm.
all from a
Yeah.
connection of fictional characters, that
Yeah.
just are in people's heads that we can relate to, and so that has been an amazing blessing for me. And I guess it still would have been the same had I just been on the outside and come in as an author. But I think making those connections early on with some of the ladies really did motivate me to keep going and then not be so afraid to share my work.
Okay. Well, I have to mention, speaking of community, I have to mention the first time that I met you. I've only seen you twice, but the first time that I met you was very it it was what's the word I'm looking for? It's very memorable to me because I was doing my first author signing. It was at the LCA Lights Camera Action in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is a few years ago at this point. I had never done an author, like I said, it was I never done an author signing. Like I said, it was my first one. And I have people who I've met through my podcast, and I'm like, okay, you do events. How many books should I bring? What should I do? Like, I'm getting all this advice. So when it came down to the actual book signing, I forget what time it started. I don't remember. And I had the bright idea that, oh, if I go down maybe 30 minutes before it starts, I'll be able to set up. And those who do book signings now probably are laughing at me like saying this because let me tell you, I had my wagon and I'm just, got my little hair done, little outfit, I'm all confident. I'm just going. I had my little wagon and I looked in the room. It was full of people buying books. Everybody was set up. And I'm like, why didn't I know to be I had no idea. I asked every question except for that one. So there wasn't even a table for me there. Like it was bananas. So I was able to get set up, but I was like sweating. Like because people are around and it was my first time. I was by myself. I was sweating. So once I finally got set up and everything, it was cool. It was cool, but I still like my nerves was on fire. Like it was so much going on. But that brings me to meeting you or you actually coming to meet me. I don't know if you saw the struggle on me. I have no I don't know what it was, but I'm guessing it's just more of your spirit to come and introduce yourself to people. I'm seeing that's more of your spirit now, but I was like, she probably thought I was struggling and I was. She's like, let me go lay my calm hand on this porch. But it was just memorable to me because you introduced yourself to me. You're very kind. If you told me if I have any questions or if I need anything, I can reach out. And it was just so comforting and soothing in that moment where my whole everything was on 10. So I really appreciate that. I never forgot it. And then when I saw you a few months ago at Indie Love, actually met your daughter, Jada.
Yeah.
How is Miss Jada?
She's great. She's great.
So sweet. So sweet. Oh my goodness. Like y'all just, I'm sure, just like a very sweet and loving, caring family. I felt that when I was talking to her. It was just like, she was just really easy to talk to. It was just like very inviting and calm and just sweet. And I'm just like, I'm talking to her and she had on like a netted shirt. And I was like, oh, girl, that's cute, blah, 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 blah. Where'd you get that from? She was telling me, and I was like, girl, I'm too old to wear that, but it's cute. I was like, it's cute on you. And then we started talking about locks. And she said something of the other, like, well, my mom, something about your locks or something. And I was like, oh. And she was like, my mom over there. And I turned and I saw you. I was like, that's your mom? And she was like, yeah, Bailey West. I'm like, I said I met your mother. Like it turned into this whole big thing. It was so sweet. It was so cool. But the moral of the story is I just want to thank you for taking time out that day to give me a calm word when I don't know if you knew I needed it, but I did. But I appreciate you doing that and just making yourself available to me. So I said all that to say that. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that for me, more than anything, the community is important.
Hmm.
And I don't look at the other authors within the community as my competition at
Right.
all, because they're not. I'm my only competition, right?
Hmm.
The women and the men that write these stories and that come together to try to tell this full circle story of the Black experience are my family, and I want everybody to feel supported, because I remember coming into the community as an author and really being afraid to even reach out and ask people questions because I didn't know how to approach it.
Right.
But the ladies whose inboxes I did slide into, some gave some really valuable information. And I remember one just really just, what else you need to know? What else do you need to know? And
Right. Right.
she was that way with me. I made sure to share that same information with everybody. If I find a good deal on bookmarks, some stickers, how to put some cute stuff in a book, how to get my table together for event, like I will share all of that stuff, because ultimately if one wins, we all win,
Right.
right? And so that's what I love about it. I try to stay very far away from discourse, and all I want to do is just promote and support. So thank you for saying that. But yeah, I just want to come by and say hi, because I know what it's like to be out there trying to make it where book signings are. Man, the readers see one side, but it's a whole other side of
Yes.
those signings. And even with the recent discourse with like the Black romance thing and all of that, I'm like, y'all have no idea. The business side of this is a whole other thing,
It really is. It really is. It is, and I so enjoy them now. I
Mhm,
really do.
mhm.
But that first one, man, that was,
First one's a
yeah,
whole.
that one was something. But I'm glad I got it out my system.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with you that the community, helping each other, building each other up is more valuable than gatekeeping. Why wouldn't you want to help someone? Or, that's just the way I think.
Yeah.
Um, and I'll just leave it there. There's no need to, yeah,
Right.
I'll leave it there.
Exactly.
So, couple more questions because I didn't realize we've gone this Q&A for a little while. I'll give you two more questions and we'll go to the book discussion. Does that
Okay.
sound good? Okay. Okay. So, how many books right now do you have in your catalog? Do you know?
I have 21 or 22.
21 or
Mm,
22.
yeah.
So, to date, what is your most talked about book when it comes to readers?
Either Blues Beauty
Mhm.
or Loving Man.
Loving Man. Loving Man. That was my first listen by you, was Loving Man.
Loving
I
Man.
love that story. I loved that book. And it introduced me to Benjamin Charles.
He did
Swoon, okay?
such a
Um I love his voice. It was
yeah, yes.
Benjamin Charles and I believe Ebony Flowers.
Mm-hmm.
She
Mm-hmm.
is awesome too.
Yeah.
She is
Yeah.
really awesome.
He did a
Hmm.
fantastic job.
That, yeah, both
Yeah.
of them. That was my introduction to both of them, and they were fantastic together in that story. They really were.
Mhm.
Um, so, mm, what would you consider your author career highlight as of today? As of right now, I would say.
That's a good question. Oh, highlight. I think just evolution, right?
Mhm.
Just the ability to move forward and evolve. So I'm positive that I'm not the same author that I was in 2016.
Right.
So the highlight is the growth and maturity. The highlight is meeting new people, seeing other people grow as well, and seeing the community still thrive. So I think that that's really the highlight. Like I could say, book signings or writing a 20th book or something like that. But ultimately for me, it's just the big picture of still giving the experience, because ultimately my heart is, like I talked about earlier, giving people my portion of the full scope of the Black diaspora, because there is a place for urban lit where we talk about drugs and street gangs, and or urban where people getting shot and running the streets. But then there's also a place for just Black love that thrives in a professional setting, with minimal drama
Yeah.
and entrepreneurship, but then there's a place for mystery, there's a place for suspense, there's a place for, fantasy, LGBTQIA plus, like it's the whole diaspora. And so that my highlight is just being able to plug in my little pieces as we just make the whole thing, right?
Well, I think one of the things you do really well in your writing that I personally enjoy is, like you said, it doesn't have to be a whole lot of drama going on, but I really like that you put just enough drama in there for someone to be like, I know they did what? You put just enough to where it's not overboard or it doesn't completely pivot the story. You put that little taste right in there, and I'm just like, okay. I really like that because, like you said, urban lit, that's what you want. There are different genres that will accommodate that. But I really appreciate your writing because it's very, I want to say clean, but I don't mean, well, clean in the content, because that's also important too if you kind of want to just listen to something different. You may want to listen to something erotic here or something urban lit here or, something dark romance here. But I like that. I'm trying to get my, hold on, I'm trying to get my point out. I like that your writing is just very clean. The characters are very likable and they're not like overly dramatic. They're not out, even when they disrespect you, they're not like being disrespectful. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
I really like the realness of that. Also, in the last question I have for you before we get into the book discussion is, can you tell us what you have coming up in the future?
Woo. So I have started working on like two projects at the same time, but I can be honest and say probably from February until more recently, probably within the last month or so, I was just devoid of creative energy. I had no unction or no drive to write anything. And that's the first time that's really happened to me. Even during COVID, when things were so bleak and things were weird, I still found a way to write Loving Man. But these last few months have been weird, and there's a lot going on in the world, and so I contribute a lot of it to that. But I have started now 2 projects that I'm working on, and I don't really do them simultaneously. So what I do is I'm writing the last story of the Metamorphosis series, which is actually called Evolution. And since that's such a dense story, then I give myself breaks and write something that's very carefree and lighthearted, give myself benchmarks. So once I get to a certain number in this story, you can pause and go play with those characters and give yourself a brain break. So that's what I'm working on. I don't know when those will be ready for release, but I'm hoping soon, because I also have a series that I write with my writer friend Marley Ray, and we released 1 book last year in our Whip and Fave series, and we want to release another one this year. So we're working on that as well. So I have a lot of irons in the fire, but it's what drives me. It's what really, it's my happy place. It's my, some people do yoga, some people do walks. I can just sit and just go into fantasy world and just tell stories. And outside of my books, I have the Petersburg Book Fest coming up, where I'll be there in person doing a panel. And then we have like a little not little, but a wine bar is opening, and I'll be one of the featured authors there. And then next year, big deal for me is the Black Romance Book Fest. So I'll be a featured author there. So it's a lot of stuff happening. A lot of stuff
Yeah.
happening.
Good. I will actually be at the Petersburg Book Fest as well.
Oh, you will.
Yes,
Great.
I believe we're both in Virginia.
Yes, we are. We are.
Yes, so I will be there, and I actually went to Resist to the bookstore, and I
Uh-huh.
met Demetrius a couple weeks ago.
He's amazing.
He's really, really nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I will be there. I will see you at that too, and I'll be at BRBF next
Oh,
year.
nice.
Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
yes.
I
Good.
did go this past year as well.
Mhm.
So it was amazing, and you're gonna have a great time at both, I'm
Good.
sure.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. So, all your information, books, audiobooks, appearances can be found on your website, correct?
Correct.
And
Yes.
what is your website?
It's bailey-west.com.
Alrighty. And I'll also put that information below in the description box for anyone who wants to go check out and see what Bailey has going on. All right. So now, it's the book discussion. Okay. Okay, let me relax my nerves because I really enjoyed this book.
Did you? I'm glad.
I really did. I didn't know what to expect.
Mhm.
Um, in these days, I barely even read like the synopsis. I
Mhm.
just go in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to start the book discussion of Blue's Beauty, can you let the audience know what the book is about?
So Blue's Beauty, my very first novel, my forever love, is the story of two broken people who come together to try to find love and a path forward after life has taken them all through it, you know. And it resonates so much with a lot of people because I think that we can find ourselves in those places where we're wondering, like, after all of this, what's next? You
Mm-hmm.
know, which is the question that they both had on some level. And so to connect those two together, to see that even though you come from, you've been in a broken place, that there's still healing and restoration and you can move forward.
Awesome. Awesome. I also want to mention that the audiobook is narrated by Cami Darian and Dylan Ford. And as I mentioned earlier, it is a 15-hour listen, so you can really lock in and get into this story. So the first question I have is you mentioned we talked about how you have 22 books right now.
Mhm.
For this book discussion, why did you choose Blue's Beauty?
I think when coming into something new, I've never been on your podcast before. We've never had a discussion. I always want to introduce people to the entrances to my catalog. So it's either
Got
Blues
it.
Beauty or Loving Man, or actually also Epiphany is kind of an entrance because the characters in Loving Man are also in Epiphany. But it's the way that you get to know me. And like I talked about before, I recycle my characters. So you might as well get used to hearing them and
Right.
know them because they're going to be there no matter what I write. So it's a good way to, even if they're not connected in a series, I may mention their name or something that they do further out. So it's just best to start at the beginning.
That makes sense. Um, so let me ask you, well, first let's get into how the book started. Now, you really tore me to pieces. That first chapter, buddy, I had to take several pauses. And I'm like, listening, oh, they met in school. Oh, okay, they're going to college. Oh, this is nice. Oh, they got married. Oh, wonderful. And then, bam, I'm like, wait a minute, hold up. But like we have been saying, that is like real life. That is real life. But it was a little challenging for me to get through because it was just so much happening it wasn't all at once, but it was so much that happened in that first chapter to really set the stage for who these characters are and what they have to overcome.
Yeah.
So, was it difficult for you to write that first chapter to introduce the characters that way?
Yeah. Looking back at that story, I would never do that now. Any book that I wrote, again, I was free to do whatever I wanted to do, but now I'm so thoughtful because of, people like, oh my gosh, you tore me to pieces. I couldn't get finished. I'm so very much more thoughtful about just taking people out. But I was grieving when I wrote this story. I had lost my best friend to cancer.
Oh,
So a lot of the aspects of losing somebody in the story really mirrored me a lot. At that time, my very best friend died of cancer in 2014. And she was, when I decided that I might try to write a story, she was an English professor. And so I wrote some story and I sent it to her. And it wasn't Blues Beauty. It was, I can't remember which story I used that in now. I may have been Ezekiel's Passion, but I wrote it and then I sent it to her and she kind of like redlined me and told me like how to do things and how things should flow, which is some things that I still follow to this very day. Because I didn't know anything about writing. So I was mourning her. And then as I was writing the story, my aunt passed away and my nephew passed away. And my nephew, I was born an aunt. And so my nephew was 3 years older than me. And so I was going through a lot of that stuff all at the same time. So I think that the story really was a place for me to kind of get some of that stuff out as well, which is how it ended up the way that it ended up. And I think I blocked like some of the things that I really had happen to people at the beginning of that story. People remind me, they like, she lost and he lost. I'm like, oh my goodness, I would never do that. I would never do that now, but it did them up for who they were. So, but yeah, I cried when I wrote the scene where he just was outside of himself in pain, and when she was at the hospital with her mom, like all that stuff made me cry. So but it was healing, I guess, cathartic at the same time, because this day,
Yeah. Just a side note question. When's the last time you either read or listened to that book?
So when the audio came out, maybe last year, I listened to the first part of it. But I haven't listened to the entire in its entirety, and I haven't read it in its entirety. I've read pieces here and there, but in its entirety, I haven't in a long time.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the characters. Roman and Zanetta. I like the names, by the way.
Yeah.
Which character was your favorite to write? Between those two, because there's more than just them, but out of those two, who was your favorite to write?
Zanetta was my favorite because she spoke to me first. Even though I had the story of, like, I was on YouTube one night back in the day, and back in 2015, I guess, and looking at in the middle of the night, just down the rabbit hole of videos, and I saw a video of this pastor whose wife had passed away, and he still was wearing a wedding ring. And I looked it up, and she had died like 3-4 years earlier, and he was still wearing a wedding ring. And so I started thinking, and then I saw like Marvin Sapp, who also lost his wife to cancer. And I was wondering, like, what happens now? Like, if you're the one that's always being the encourager, if you're the preach, like, how do you survive? Which is kind of where his character came from. But then she was the one that spoke to me first. Just being a young woman in the church, just trying to figure out her way, and dating and all of that stuff. So she's my favorite.
Okay. Are any of what happened to her outside of the tragedies that happened to her? Did you experience any of what Zanetta experienced, or you're just like the character just spoke to you and it's all fictional?
It's all fictional. She is just a cornucopia of a whole bunch of things that I've heard or maybe read. And then she just talked to me. She really did. Now, her passion for fashion,
Right.
things like that are innately me. Like I love
Yes.
clothes and things like that. But her life and her trajectory and her outlook on life, just her hopefulness and all of that is just her. She spoke to me. She was the first character that I had that really showed me who they were, and I just wrote who they were.
Okay. And we mentioned it earlier about you incorporating fashion into the story. So, Zanetta's character was she was a fashion stylist.
Hmm.
And I really, we're all visual people when we're reading and or listening. So I really liked how you were throwing these outfits together, girl, with these different patterns and the different types of fits. And I was like, okay. I'm like, wait a minute. I can see myself. Okay, yeah, let me write that down because it was like the way you were pulling it together. It wasn't just like a neutral color, and just whatever. No, it was actually giving me ideas on what type of patterns that I should look at. And it really gave a, the characters. Mm, it really showed who the characters were because you could see a lot from a character by the way they are dressed. How they
Yeah.
are dressed does make a difference. So I liked a lot of the outfits. Oh, well, I liked all the outfits that you described, especially when it came to the menswear. I
Hmm.
liked how, it was very, very tailored and but still very relaxed and cool and still stylish and not so the what people would think a pastor would wear, like kind of just a basic gray or navy blue. Like you really stepped up that fashion with them. And that also goes into what you were saying about people being in the real world, navigate, like putting together real life experiences and what you experience now into what can sometimes be like an antiquated type of environment, if you
Yeah.
will.
Yeah, it was.
um Let me see. My next question is, well, I think we kind of discussed it. It was what was the hardest scene for you to write, but I would assume it was the opening scene.
Mm, the hardest one for me to write, yeah, was the opening scenes. I mean, it was a lot of stuff in there that actually made me cry, though.
Yeah.
But I think him being so heartbroken, because seeing a man cry, girl, because girls cry, we gonna get our tears in.
Yeah.
But to see a man broken, it was yeah, that was hard to write. I mean, I think I probably put my computer down for a minute to just
Yeah.
kind of absorb that, but because I knew it was necessary,
Yeah.
his anger, and his hurt. But yeah, I think that was the hardest thing.
Okay. And conversely, what was your favorite, like the easiest scene or the most happy or the most joyful scene for you to write in that book?
Um, I think any of the scenes where they were together, but one of the
Mm.
scenes that makes me smile is when he was getting his haircut and the barber was checking out Zanetta, and he was like,
Yeah.
him being jealous and things like that, really, I enjoyed those parts. So even when she was able to meet back up with her ex and he apologized, he's like, I was telling you to apologize, but I was talking about to my woman. So things like that. So anything where it was really showing his humanity,
Right.
um, outside of him just being this prolific speaker and all thought
Right.
person. It was fun, right? Oh, and I love anything ignorant. So when I was able to have her over here, the girls talking about her getting them back and all that, like all
Mm.
that just gives me joy. Anytime I can put somebody being ignorant in my book
Yeah.
and all them names and stuff like that, oh, it just
Yeah.
brings doing because I don't get to do it in
Yes.
real life, you know?
Yes, I'm with you on that. But you know what I thought was gonna develop into something was how his secretary was so jealous. I thought that she was going to do something to the girl. I was just waiting for that shoe to drop. But like I said, you put just enough in there to be like, but you don't take it. You don't take it there. But I was just like, what is this girl's problem? Talking about if
I
pastor
figured
said
out,
it, then it's so. I'm
yeah.
like, girl, calm down.
I figured out with her because as I wrote her, I think initially I did want her to bring some level of drama to their life. But as I was writing her, I started to think back to women being in positions. So, like when I started my job with the government years ago, there it was a group of younger women who started, and then there was a group of older women who were already there. And those older women had such a hard time relinquishing
Mm,
control. They just did. And some of them really made our jobs harder,
yeah.
um, because they just would not show us. You know, they were like, well, this is what I do, and you don't get to do this, you know. And I think that that was kind of her mentality.
Mm,
Felt like she was, you know, infringing upon her territory. And
right.
so she was just going to be very territorial. But when I initially wrote her, I think that I was thinking that she would go ahead and
Do
try to
more,
step
right?
up. Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
So this story has a lot of aspects. It covers a lot of ground. It takes the characters pretty much from childhood into adulthood. So I'm just letting everyone know, like, if when you listen to it, you're gonna get like a full story. One of the other things I wanted to mention that I really liked in the story that gave me quite the tickle
Mhm.
was the restaurant scene.
Mhm.
Now that had me rolling. That was good because I knew there was something going on with Conrad. I knew it
Yeah.
was something, but I thought that, well, he was seeing somebody else. But just like, that's not what I was expecting.
Mhm.
But that gave me quite the tickle because old boy was ready for all the smoke. Like,
All of it.
I was just like, this is not going to end well. It's not going to end well. And I really like you said, showing Roman's humanity, how he showed up and like, look, you got a problem with her, you got a problem with me.
Yeah.
I love that he was um, a protector. I really, really appreciated that about his character. He was a protector. He was a provider. He was a nurturer. He was just like such like a nice breath of fresh air for a MMC, a main male character. He really was, and I really enjoyed the way he cared for Zanetta just on first glance. He was done. Like, and
Yes.
that's what I liked as well. You could just tell the first time that he saw her, like everybody who's reading, they knew that was it. That was a wrap.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then she, you know what? She was acting like, well, I don't know. I mean, girl, you know you want that man. You know you want that man. Well, I got this
Right.
thing going on with Conrad. Girl,
Mhm.
Conrad,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
But I really like that. The whole story was just a breath of fresh air once I was able to get past the first part. Let me see. Um, why did you feel it was important to tell this story with these characters?
Because I just wanted to, I think I must have come across a story, maybe more than one, that painted pastors in such a negative light. And
Mm.
every story, I think it was maybe two that I came across where the past, no, what it was three. So two, I came across the pastor was cheating, like his wife got abducted or something like that. He ain't
Oh,
cared nothing about she was gone because he had a girlfriend or something strange
oh.
like that. And another one, he was messing with the boys in the church or something. Like they were always horrible people.
Mm,
And then the third story that I read about a church or a pastor, the pastor was very passive.
mm,
He he ain't want to touch the lady because the Lord ain't want him to touch her and all that stuff. And I'm like, y'all, come on. Like, this is not real life. And having been around pastors and clergy and people that are in the top levels of church, in different types of churches too, not just the one that I grew up in, I realized that I know that people are just people.
Right.
And I know that our conversations are just our conversations and our lives are just our lives. They do hold themselves, the ones that I know, hold themselves to a standard, but they're still just human beings. And so I wanted to tell that story. I wanted to honor that, and so, but I wanted him to be very human,
Yeah.
And Roman really did stick to what he said, and then he made Zanetta stick to what she said, because just throw caution to the wind, which I totally understand.
I thought because I thought the scene you talking about, I'm just sitting here, I'm working, and then took it to the bedroom. I was like, took who to the bedroom? I was like, I really was like invested, like, no, because I'm glad that it turned out the way it did, because I would have been like, no, because you're actually rooting for these characters to do what they say they're gonna do. And that really was like, they're not, but fully ready, willing, and able to listen if they did. It was just like, let's see how this is gonna play out now. But I'm just glad that you put that real life in there, like real life, like this is
hard to stick to what you say you're gonna do. You in a position, because and that's the thing, we can do a whole lot of talking about what we would do if we was in that situation. People do that all the time, but until you're in that situation, you don't know what you will do. And we judge people based on their decisions, and you don't know what you would do. And even if you were, you still may do something different than the person that you watching do it, and so I was proud of them for withholding, because for me it became a struggle to keep them apart in the story. Like, I really had just gotten to a point where I'm like, something gotta happen,
right.
This doesn't feel like normal life in reality. But I'm glad that it happened the way that it did happen, and they did have their moments, of intimacy. Some people say that they did have sex. I don't think so. I think that they waited until they got married. I know that they touched and explored and things like that, but ultimately the act of sexual intercourse did not happen until they got married. And but that's what they want. That's what she wanted, and he honored that. He made her honor it. So I appreciated that about him.
Really, really nice character. Really nice characters. I like nice, sweet men like that in books. I love that. So Blue's Beauty is book 1 of a 3-book series. Are you able to tell us about the other 2 books in the series, which characters they are, and anything you would like us to know?
So the second book is Ezekiel's Passion, and you met Ezekiel and Paxton in his story. Paxton is his cousin, but raised as brothers. And
Cousin brother.
And Ezekiel is the youngest, and the youngest, they do what they do. So the second book is Ezekiel's Passion. You met his mate, who is Zora, Zanetta's best friend. And then you haven't been introduced to Paxton's love interest yet. She won't come until Ezekiel, I think.
Okay.
But she, I don't remember when I introduced her. I think it's Ezekiel.
It has to be, because I don't remember her in the first one.
Okay. Yeah, because it's interesting, when I released Blue's Beauty and I would have book discussions, women asked me if Paxton was gay.
Really?
Now I wonder, why would you think that? But it's because of the level of compassion that he had for his brother and how he stuck to him. And you'll see that in his story even more, that he's the one that, while everybody has their head bowed, feeling comfortable and praying, Paxton is the one that's watching. He is the protector, of the three. They all have their role. Roman is the spiritual one. Ezekiel is the carefree one, but Paxton is the glue. He's the protector. And so writing his story was challenging because by that time I started to have people's ideas of who he was in my head. When they said he was gay, and I'm like, well, should I just have him running through women so they understand?
Yeah, I didn't get that vibe from him.
Yeah, I don't know what to do.
He was just, to me, just introverted. Like, I didn't get that vibe. I do wonder why people would ask that as well.
Yeah, I think it's just the level of compassion that he had, because he just stuck very close to his brother when he saw that he was struggling.
Yeah.
He didn't want to lose him. He loved him, but that's his role in the family.
Right.
And you'll see that as the stories evolve, that they all have very specific roles, and so that's his.
Okay, and I will be in that series finishing up. The last question, before I ask you the last question, I do want to say that I really thought it was really dope how you had the banter between Zeke and Zora at the end of the book to introduce their story. That was very dope. I like that a lot. So kudos on that.
Thank you. I'll never do that again, though. But yes,
because it sets you up. It sets you up.
I'm telling you, the first stories, you could just do what your heart desires, but I would never set myself up like that again, because I didn't even know them for sure when I did that, but I just knew this was my way of ensuring that this was not my only story. So I put that in there to force myself.
You had to. I made the big error of when I did my first book, I actually had it in print. This is the next book coming up. Don't you know I still never wrote it?
Yes, you can. Yes.
I mean, I've written other books, but it wasn't that book that I said it was going to be. And I was like, since then, I was like, yeah, I learned my lesson on that.
Yep.
I learned my lesson. All right. So my last question I have for you is, in your bio, you say that your goal is to leave a lasting impression on every reader who encounters your books. What is the impression you want Zanetta and Roman to leave on your readers?
That no matter how hard life gets, no matter what twists and turns you take, your destiny is your destiny, your purpose is your purpose, and you will always find your way back to it.
Very nice. It's very nice. All right, so that is all the questions that I have for the book discussion and for the Q&A. How you feeling? You feeling good?
Feeling good. This was great. I love you. Had some really good questions. Thank you so much. I loved it.
Good. Okay. All right, so now we are at the end of the podcast, and if you watch my podcast, you know that means we fitting to play a game. And the game I have, which is old tried and true, is Urban Trivia. Have you ever played Urban Trivia?
I have not played Urban Trivia.
Have you seen Urban Trivia before?
I have not seen Urban Trivia.
Okay, so this is a fun game. It is all about Black culture. So it could be movies, music, just overall everyday living, things that growing up in the Black culture we should know. It's really fun, and I always ask to see if people can get to 5, and these are all multiple choice, so you don't have to come up off your head for it. So so if you're watching this and you've heard these questions before, please give me some grace, because I never shuffle. I'm shuffling them now to see if I can get some different questions. But let me pull this first one. Oh, that's not one. Okay. First question. Who was the first Black quarterback in the NFL to win a Super Bowl? Was it A, Patrick Mahomes II, B, Doug Williams, C, Michael Vick, or D, Russell Wilson?
Oh, first Black quarterback? I have no idea, but I've heard of all of those names before.
You want to take a guess?
I know it's not Michael Vick. It's not Michael Vick.
Not Michael Vick.
Not Michael Vick. And then you said Patrick Mahomes, the
Patrick
second.
Mahomes, and Doug Williams and Russell Wilson.
It's either Doug Williams or Russell Wilson then, right? Is
It's
it
one of them.
is it Doug Williams?
It is. It's Doug
Okay.
Williams. Okay. That's a good guess, girl. I wouldn't know
Right,
anything
process of
about that.
elimination. I know Michael Vick didn't win one.
Okay, that is one. Sorry. On the movie, I'm laughing at the question. On the movie, The Color Purple, which of the following did Miss Sophia have to fight all her life? Was it A, her daddy, B, her uncles, C, her brothers, or D, all of the above?
All of the above.
Yeah. Why is this a question?
Right. All of the above. All of the above.
Oh, goodness. So that's two. That's two.
He did a lot of fighting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Three. A third one, rather. On the show Atlanta, Ernest's Uncle Willie, who was played by Cat Williams, was also known as who? Was it A, Florida Man, B, Bicentennial Man, C, Paperboy, or D, Alligator Man?
I have no idea because I've never watched Atlanta.
Oh, really?
Oh, Jada watches Atlanta, watched it, but I have no idea. So I'm gonna lose this one.
Take a shot, and it's very preposterous.
Again.
Florida Man, Bicentennial Man, Paperboy, or Alligator Man?
I'm gonna go with D.
It is Alligator Man. I have actually seen, you need to see the clip of him being Alligator Man. He literally has an alligator in his bathtub.
Oh no, I have to watch it. I've never sat down to watch it. I know it's a good show. I just never watched it.
Yeah, but that was funny. So this is 4. Now you might get tripped up on this one. Because I don't even know. I don't know this one.
Okay.
Okay. On the show Fresh Prince, what's Jeffrey's middle name? I know, right? Is it A, Philip, B, Butler, C, Barbara, or D, Ramon?
I'm gonna go with A.
It isn't. You want to take another guess?
Yeah.
Butler, Barbara, or Ramon?
It's not Ramon, is it? It's Barbara.
It's Barbara. Why they give that man? Now I can't even recall them ever talking about Jeffrey with a middle name.
No.
That's crazy. All right, last one. Okay. Have you ever watched the movie Friday? Because I want to give you a fighting chance.
Yes, I have.
Okay. All right. On the movie Friday, how much money did Smokey's mom give him to buy some cigarettes from the store? Was it A, $1, B, $5, C, $10, or D, $7?
I don't remember the dollar amount, but I know he said it wasn't enough, and she said
make it enough.
Was it $2? What was my choices?
$1, $5, $10, or $7?
It must have been. Was it $1?
It was $1. Oh man!
Say that
so
all
that
the time.
is your,
Make it enough. Make
it enough. Yeah. That was your 5. So you did good. So the game is called Urban Trivia. It's a very full deck.
I have to get questions. And I love trivia.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I play it on the podcast a lot. It's a lot of fun. All right, so we have come to the end of the podcast. I want to thank my guest, Miss Bailey West, in the building. I had to say it. I just had to say it. I want to thank you for joining me today. And in closing, is there anything you would like to say before we go?
No, just thank you for having me. And like me, there are a lot of other amazing, talented, gifted Black romance authors out there. And if you are not looking for contemporary romance and you're looking for something else, please still check us out. Become part of the community because we want your support. We need your support, and we thrive because of your support.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.